We often talk about attraction as if it were a formula, something predictable, measurable, even guaranteed. But the truth is far more nuanced, far more human. What pulls us toward another person isn't sweetness, perfection, or constant availability. In fact, what many interpret as cruel is often something else entirely. It is the power of boundaries, the strength of self-possession, the quiet confidence of someone who refuses to negotiate their worth. Attraction often begins in the subtle space where self-respect meets emotional clarity, a space many people misunderstand because they confuse boundaries with rejection and confidence with coldness. Yet when someone truly honors their own value, they create a presence that naturally reshapes the emotional dynamics around them. Most people spend their energy trying to be liked, to be understood, to be chosen. They stretch themselves thin, offer more than they can sustain, apologize for things that don't require apology, and silence parts of themselves in the hope that tenderness will be reciprocated. But attraction doesn't flourish in self-abandonment. It flourishes in equilibrium, where desire is expressed without neediness and connection is offered without self-erasure. When you hold yourself with dignity, you communicate something powerful without saying anything at all, that your inner landscape has weight, that your time carries value, and that your emotions are not up for casual negotiation. People feel this. They sense that you are not filtering your behavior through fear or through the desperate need to be accepted. You are showing up as someone who understands their own worth, and that clarity creates emotional gravity. It's not about arrogance, it's about presence. Not a loud, performative confidence, but a quiet assurance that says you are no longer willing to compromise your authenticity just to secure affection. This clarity also changes the way you interact. You listen more intentionally because you are not trying to impress. You speak more honestly because you are not terrified of losing someone for expressing what you feel. You choose how to respond rather than reacting from insecurity or impulse. And as your behavior shifts, so does the energy between you and others. You stop trying to win love and instead begin to invite it. You stop chasing validation and instead cultivate mutual respect. What many people interpret as cruel is simply someone who is no longer willing to overextend themselves. It's the courage to say no without guilt, to walk away from what is misaligned, and to refuse emotional negotiations that require shrinking. It is the discipline of not giving more than you can sustain and not asking for less than you deserve. This balance creates a sense of emotional safety for others, not because you are overly accommodating, but because your self-respect signals reliability, consistency, and intentionality. People are attracted to those who hold themselves with this kind of clarity because it suggests emotional intelligence, personal depth, and the capacity for a healthy connection built on mutual value rather than fear-driven compromise. Desire thrives in space because human connection is not sustained through constant proximity but through the subtle dance between closeness and individuality. When someone begins to honor their own needs instead of prioritizing constant availability, the entire dynamic shifts. Many people mistakenly believe that the more they give, the more they show up, the more they remain accessible at every moment, the stronger the bond will become. Yet emotional saturation often leads to diminishing returns. The more we flood a relationship with uninterrupted attention, the less room there is for longing, curiosity, or the natural pull of attraction. Space is not distance, it is breathing room, the gentle pause that allows two people to rediscover each other rather than drown in each other's presence. When you stop overextending yourself and begin to respect the rhythms of your own life, you allow a relationship to develop organically. You return to your passions, your routines, your pursuits, your inner world. And as you nourish yourself, you unknowingly become more magnetic. People are drawn to those who have a life that feels full, textured, and self-generated. It signals vitality. It signals independence. It signals emotional adulthood. The energy becomes less "I need you to feel whole" and more "I choose to share my wholeness with you." This subtle shift changes everything, because choosing is always more compelling than needing. The truth is, attraction requires a sense of anticipation. When someone is always present, always responding, always available, the mystery evaporates. Not the artificial kind of mystery built on tactics or games, but the natural intrigue that arises when both individuals are living fully, allowing each encounter to be meaningful rather than habitual. Space gives a relationship a pulse, it creates rhythm, it introduces contrast, It allows intimacy to feel intentional instead of obligatory. Creating space also helps regulate emotional intensity. Without it, people often fall into patterns of overthinking, overanalyzing, or projecting fears onto the smallest interaction. But when you step back and allow yourself room to breathe, you gain clarity. You see the relationship more accurately, respond more mindfully, and communicate more authentically. And the other person feels this maturity. They sense that your interest is genuine but not desperate, that your affection is real but not consuming. This is why honoring space is so attractive. It shows that you trust the connection enough not to smother it. It shows that you respect yourself enough not to lose your identity within it. It shows that you understand the difference between closeness and dependence. And without announcing it, you create a dynamic where connection becomes something to look forward to rather than something taken for granted. Confidence is not confrontation. It is the quiet, unwavering ability to remain rooted in yourself regardless of how others perceive you. Many people misunderstand confidence, imagining it as loudness, dominance, or a willingness to assert oneself aggressively. But the most compelling form of confidence is subtle, grounded, and deeply calm. It comes from a place where your sense of worth is not dependent on someone else's approval, mood, or interest. It is the knowledge that your value does not rise when someone notices you, nor does it fall when someone overlooks you. When you embody this inner steadiness, your presence communicates far more than any performance ever could. This type of confidence reshapes interactions in profound ways. Instead of seeking validation, you bring authenticity. Instead of chasing connection, you participate in it. You no longer feel pressured to impress, entertain, or hold someone's attention. You simply allow yourself to be seen without manipulating the outcome. This creates a sense of emotional safety for the other person because they feel the absence of desperation. They sense your ability to stand on your own feet, and that stability is inherently attractive. People gravitate toward those who do not make their interest feel like an obligation or a burden. When you are grounded, your communication transforms. You speak more intentionally because you are not performing. You express your opinions without trying to dominate and without shrinking to avoid conflict. You can handle disagreement without spiraling into defensiveness or insecurity. This emotional regulation signals maturity, and maturity deepens attraction because it suggests that you can navigate the complexity of emotions without becoming overwhelmed or reactive. The ability to stay calm under emotional pressure is far more magnetic than grand gestures or dramatic displays. Moreover, quiet confidence creates a natural sense of respect. It shows that you will not betray your own boundaries just to maintain harmony. You won't say yes when you mean no, you won't tolerate treatment that undermines your dignity, and you won't sacrifice your inner stability for temporary companionship. This is not confrontation, it is self-honoring. And when someone sees that you are willing to honor yourself, they instinctively feel compelled to honor you as well. This kind of confidence also brings a subtle air of mystery, not because you are hiding anything, but because you are not seeking constant validation. You are not trying to be everything for everyone. You are simply existing in your truth, and that truth is enough. People feel drawn to someone who doesn't need to announce their worth, someone who doesn't crumble when faced with uncertainty, someone who moves through life with intention rather than fear. In this quiet strength, attraction finds its deepest roots. Mystery is often misunderstood as a deliberate tactic, a strategic withholding meant to create intrigue, but true mystery has nothing to do with manipulation. It arises naturally when a person is rooted in their own inner world, committed to their own growth, and connected to a life that extends far beyond romantic validation. When you live with purpose, when your time is filled with pursuits that nourish you, when your emotional attention is not constantly orbiting another person, you create an energy that feels alive and textured. People sense that you are not trying to be deciphered, you are simply living, and that authenticity creates a depth that others want to explore. A person who is fully engaged with their own life becomes inherently intriguing because their presence feels whole rather than needy. They do not depend on constant reassurance, nor do they broadcast every thought, fear, or desire. Instead of anxiously oversharing to feel close, they reveal themselves slowly, naturally, in rhythm with trust. This pacing is not intentional, it is the organic result of someone who maintains a healthy relationship with themselves. When you have emotional boundaries and a rich inner life, You don't rush intimacy, and you don't hand out your vulnerability like a business card. You allow connection to unfold in a way that feels grounded, which creates an atmosphere of curiosity rather than saturation. Mystery also comes from the way you manage your emotional availability. When you refrain from making another person the center of your emotional universe, you signal that your worth does not hinge on their approval. This non-attachment is compelling because it creates a sense of freedom in the relationship. There is no pressure to constantly perform or provide emotional reassurance. Your steadiness allows the other person to feel both interested and at ease. They want to know more about you, not because you are hiding, but because your life contains dimensions that are still unfolding. People are often drawn to those who maintain their individuality within connection. When you pursue your passions, nurture your goals, and stay committed to your personal evolution, you radiate a sense of movement. You are not stagnant. You are not overly available. You are not waiting for someone else to determine your worth or your direction. This sense of self-propulsion creates emotional texture, and texture creates attraction. The beauty of authentic mystery is that it encourages the other person to meet you with effort. It invites reciprocity rather than imbalance. It inspires respect because your boundaries and priorities are clear. And it allows connection to develop with depth because the pace is slow enough to savor yet steady enough to trust. In this natural unfolding, intrigue becomes a byproduct of living a life that is full, intentional, and authentically. Your own people are drawn to emotional authority not because it is loud, forceful, or controlling, but because it reflects a deep internal coherence, a consistency between what someone feels, what they value, and how they act. Emotional authority is the capacity to remain grounded, centered, and deliberate even when the world around you is chaotic or unpredictable. It is the presence of someone who can navigate their own inner landscape with clarity and composure, who understands that their emotions are signals, not mandates, and who can respond rather than react. This steadiness is magnetic because it conveys reliability, self-knowledge, and an unspoken promise of emotional safety. When someone embodies emotional authority, they do not abdicate responsibility for their own feelings, nor do they expect others to manage them. They can experience strong emotions without letting those emotions dictate their behavior in ways that are destructive or overwhelming. They understand that being vulnerable does not mean being unstable, and that expressing desire does not require abandoning discernment. This combination of self-awareness and measured expression draws others in, because people sense that interacting with them will be authentic, meaningful, and grounded rather than exhausting or unpredictable. Emotional authority also fosters trust and respect. When a person consistently shows that they can manage their feelings with integrity, others feel safe to do the same. There is no need for constant reassurance, manipulation, or testing because the other person's stability signals that connection will not be a rollercoaster of uncertainty. This quality encourages deeper intimacy because it removes the pressure to perform or overcompensate. Both parties can engage from a place of balance and choice rather than fear or anxiety. Another aspect of emotional authority is the ability to make decisions with clarity and courage. People with this presence do not act impulsively to gain approval or avoid discomfort, they act in alignment with their values and priorities. This decisiveness is attractive because it signals leadership not of others, but of oneself. It communicates that one can be counted on to stand firm when necessary, and that one's boundaries are not negotiable in ways that compromise integrity. Finally, emotional authority creates a natural sense of magnetism because it reflects authenticity and resilience. When someone is emotionally grounded, they carry an energy that is calm yet compelling, strong yet inviting, independent yet capable of deep connection. This balance is rare, and the rarity amplifies attraction. People are drawn to those who can navigate life's emotional complexities with composure, who can hold themselves steady in the face of uncertainty, and who can invite connection without surrendering themselves. It is not a matter of control or dominance, it is a matter of presence, clarity, and intentionality.